Model Railway, Bedstead Junction. Now tonight we're going to be looking at a locomotive I've just received today, bought on eBay. Didn't take long to arrive, just a couple of days, which I'm very pleased with. Thank you, Post Office. And this is the one we're looking at right now. County of Devon. It's a churchward design of locomotive, and you can see the family resemblance in the cabs between this one and the locomotive just beyond it, which is St David, one of my stalwarts of my model railway. Now this one is something which is comes from something called the Hornby Railroad range. Okay, and that needs to be borne in mind, Hornby Railroad. And we'll just see now the kind of packaging it came in. Okay, so it would come with less detail parts. It's come with a couple of steam pipes there. That's all there is in the detail pack. And it comes in this foam polystyrene container, which in many ways I prefer. Got little holes there which you could push the locomotive out of the packaging, and then it's got the this nice little covering goes over the top of the locomotive to protect it. Okay, so we can see that there. And then the outer box clearly says Hornby Railroad, DCC ready. Now on these you'll find no information about the locomotive at all, none at all. R3277. Okay, so that's the packaging it comes in. So it's a little bit more basic compared to the packaging you may have seen on other locomotives. Please excuse the unsteady camera work there. Now, and the instruction leaflet is very much a general one. You can see it relates to more than one rubbery locomotive, so you're going to see general advice in here, all about track cleaning and everything else. And we'll see if we can get this open. And again, very sort of basic information about where to put the oil, how to remove the tender top, and where the the socket is if you wanted to convert this to DCC. And it tells you where to oil it. In fact, when this came, I checked to see if it ran, and I gave it a little drop of oil as well, so just in case. And then there's basically just information about safety and television suppression and where to get spare parts. Okay, so that's what basically the packaging consisted of. Now, because there's no, I couldn't get any information on this, certainly from with the locomotive, I've actually printed out some information here from Wikipedia. And we'll give you some of the, some basic facts about it. Well, obviously it's a steam engine, power type. Designer George Jackson Churchward. Also designed the Saint class of locomotive you see just beyond it. And there were a total of 40 produced between 1904 1906, and then between December 1911 and February 1912. I think they were built in 3 batches of 10. And they were designed for particular use. They were designed for use on lighter track where the weight limit would not permit the the passage of a 460 locomotive, like the Saint. Okay, so now there was a very much, certainly under Churchward, a drive for standardisation. So basically, when he designed the county class, it was going to be, it used a lot of the parts which were in the more powerful Saint. And as a matter of fact, I think he used the same front end sort of cylinders and everything else. So it's basically the same, virtually the same power unit between the Saint class and this. So the same kind of mass flying around as it's going along the track. Yeah, they were built as part of Churchward's standardisation plan, but they were found to have a front end too powerful for the wheel arrangement, and they were withdrawn by the early 1930s. Now, I think possibly it may be that it wasn't just to do with any perceived deficiencies with this locomotive. I mean, they were known as Churchward's Rough Riders, but they wouldn't have been in operation for as long as they were if they were no good. Well, that's my opinion anyway. They were designed in part for the Hereford to Shrewsbury, London and North Western Railway line, of which the GW had running powers, but they were expressly forbidden to use 460 locomotives. So the 440 counters were in effect a shortened GWR version of the Saint class. So you can see. So that's a 460, this is a 440. To suit that purpose. The key components are all proven, but the combination was all somewhat poor, so they say here, and perhaps the least successful of Churchward designs. They were found to be rough riders, but were otherwise effective locos. Now they use the same cylinders in motion as Churchward's 6-coupled locomotives, and required the same mass to counterbalance the reciprocating parts. That meant that there had to be much larger weights put in the wheels, basically. And the class was subject to renumbering in 1912. Now, I think possibly one of the reasons, I mean, why these were withdrawn was not just because of any perceived deficiencies in these locomotives. It's possible that it was a lot to do with the standardisation, because when Churchward's successor, Charles Benjamin Collett, came in, certainly for some of the designs, like the Moguls and other locomotives, were cannibalised to provide parts for other classes of locomotive that he was building himself. Now, I can imagine that maybe some of these were, when they were broken up, because they had the same motion and everything else, well, the same cylinder arrangement and everything else, that maybe a lot of the parts from the counties, when they were withdrawn, were in fact used maybe to keep the Saints going. That's only my guess. So correct me on that if I'm wrong, if anybody knows any differently. Now, they were withdrawn in 1930, between 1930 and 1933. But that still means that even the ones that had the shortest service, at 18 years of service on the Great Western Railway, at a time when there were great changes of locomotive design coming in. I mean, Charles Benjamin Collett wasn't shy in using Churchward's designs to build other locomotives. Like I say, he broke up a lot of the Moguls to build the Grange class. And Churchward's locomotive called the Great Bear, that was broken up as soon as it was due for its first heavy overhaul. That was the only Pacific locomotive built for the Great Western Railway. So probably this locomotives had a lot of merits. Now, at the end of their service, a lot of them had covered over 1 million miles. So again, it shows that they were effective locomotives. And although they may have been rough riding, they must have done a good job over the period of their period of use for the Great Western Railway. Okay, so this is what I've given us a good look at it. It's a nice looking locomotive. I mean, it's as a model, there's a few things which you'll see is as similarities between our Saints class from 1986 and this one here, which is a more recent model. Now, one of these things is a rather high coal load in the tender, and that's because this one here, the Saints class, I'm pointing to there, the Saint class, with a little finger on there, that was tender driven. They had a large ring-filled motor in the tender, and actually the motor was in the tender there, and it was pushed along. The locomotive was actually freewheeling. It was just being pushed along by the motor that was in here. Now, you didn't actually notice it when it was going round, but to fit it, you had to have quite a large sort of hump in the coal load to accommodate the motor. Now, this is a throwback from the previous tender-driven model, in that they still got the coal load here heaped up, and that would have been to accommodate the motor that would have gone in there, and with the tender-driven versions of this, the earlier tender-driven versions. This is a more modern railroad version, but they've not changed the tender. And in fact, the motor now lives inside the locomotive. In fact, they do on all Hornby locomotives now. There are no Hornby tender-driven ones. Now you can see the nameplate there, County of Devon. Really nice looking locomotive actually, as a 440. And like I say, even though sort of the literature I've just read from read off the internet sort of said that these locomotives had shortcomings, it may have been that they just had a shorter life just because there were a lot of other classes of locomotives being built. I mean, there were other ones being built, like the Granges, the Manors. Certainly, there were a lot of the, even though a lot were broken up, there were a lot of the original Church Ward Moguls, which were 260 locomotives, and they were able to go over the lighter lines as well. So, anyway, that's my opinion on the county class. Now, there's a few things on here which you'll probably I will point out. Being a railroad locomotive, there will be slightly less detail on it. The cab will be black inside. On the more sort of upmarket models from Hornby now, the cabs are all painted up, so they're painted up to look nice. And all the sort of brass details picked out, but this will be black inside. But you must bear in mind, this is a more basic budget-friendly model. But for all of that, it's still a lovely model, and a worthy addition to my fleet. Now what we're going to do is we're going to back her out, so I'm going to give her a little run round. You can see how she runs. Now we just need to move the controller around. I need to get my creaky knees to raise me away from the chair there. There we are. So we'll see now if we've got the point set. We have. And let's bring her out. Yep, we're going in the right direction. We'll soon find out if the points are set correctly. Yeah, they are. Very, very smooth. This model ran perfectly straight from the box. Now the seller from eBay said that this one may have spent some time in storage, and it may have required running in and oiling. Well, I checked it to see if it worked, because I like to get them straight on the track first of all, just to see if they work. Because you don't want to spend time putting oil on and everything else if it don't work. You need to then find out why it don't work first. So yeah, and it worked perfect. It ran just like this. You see it's running really, really smoothly. Like I say, the 440 county class locomotives, 40 of them. Some of them were built in the early 1900s, went through all the way through to 1930. And I think that it was in the 1930s that the Grange and Manor classes all came out. So they would have probably been the replacements for these. In fact, we'll go into moving into the operation of it. The last to be withdrawn was County of Somerset, withdrawn in November of 1933. There is one being built. Obviously, none of these were being preserved. I said obviously, but sadly, I'd say none of these were preserved. I mean, if you think about it, they were withdrawn in the 1930s, and nobody really thought about locomotive preservation, not in the way that they did. In fact, the end of steam was probably the call to arms for preservationists to grab their locos in places like Barry and restore them. But obviously, this one wouldn't have gone to Barry because it was they were withdrawn in the 1930s. It was another 30 years later that the final end of steam came. In fact, that would have been in the end of 1965 running into 1966 that Great Western Steam came to an end, and then everything was replaced by diesels. But now that there's a group of enthusiasts going to be building one of these from scratch. I think what they've done is they've already got a boiler, and I think they've got mainframes. I think it's going to be some time before their dream is realised in the form of a working locomotive. Like I say, there's people out there who care enough about these particular locomotives to want to recreate one. Now, one thing that impressed me about these particular locomotives, this particular model from Hornby, is that it's got a nice quiet motor. It doesn't stall or stutter on points. Pulls the train along quite well. It's got traction tyres on the wheels. Now, some people don't like traction tyres because obviously they can eventually wear out, they perish and they come off, and I have had to replace traction tyres before on some of my locomotives. But they do give the locomotive, certainly in the model form, a fantastic amount of pulling power. Personally, I don't mind traction tyres. It's how they were designed by Hornby or by any other manufacturer. If they're meant to be on there, they're meant to be on there. That's my opinion. Other people may disagree, and that's they're entitled to that opinion. Now, a little thank you has to go out on this one. Now, I was watching a video put out by a gentleman called Barry Davis. He's got a channel he's been running since the lockdown. Quite prolific in his production of videos, and he featured these. I happened to mention in one of my comments about the video he made, I was actually looking out for one of these. I had been on the lookout for one, and he spotted one, this one. It was perfect. You know, sometimes you get a good feeling about things when you see something, or I don't know, whatever it is you're doing. If you get a good feeling about it, it's always best to go ahead, I think. If you want niggling doubts, maybe it's time to listen to those doubts. But this was a particular one, I had no doubts whatsoever. He put a link in the comment. I went straight onto eBay and I bought it. Simple as that. I didn't hesitate for 1 second. So thank you, Barry, for your recommendation, and thank you for such a great spot. It was the price I wanted to pay. The price of some of these models have been going up lately. In fact, all the prices have been going up to some extent. Okay, so Now there's a particular book I would have liked to have I can refer people to. Now you don't see many photos of these in operation, not in actual modern railway books that I bought anyway, because a lot of the people that started taking photos that I've been looking at, like Norman Lockett, sort of began in the appears to have began in about the 1930s. And of course these were sort of broken up by the end of 1933. And so it's certainly in the books like Great Western Steam and that sort of thing, you don't see these featured. In fact, the only book that I've got a picture of one of these on, as far as I know, is a book called Mackenzie's Magic Steam. And in fact, one of these is on the cover, the front cover. Now, Hornby Railroad, we'll talk about the range a little bit more when we've got this one round. Now some people might find this an important feature, some people may not. Okay, on the front of the smoke box there, you can see the smoke box darts. Bring it around there so I just clonked into my controller. On the front of here, there would be, you can just about see them there possibly, the levers to open up the smoke box. They're actually moulded in. Now on my last locomotive I bought, they were a separately fitted part. Now you have to bear in mind that when you've got separately fitted parts like a locomotive dart, they're vulnerable to damage. Okay, but on one of these, no such problem, because the actual dart, the levers on the front of the smoke box, are actually moulded in as part of the moulding. Also, you don't get sprung buffers. Again, some people say, oh, can't be any good if it's not got sprung buffers, but really in a practical sense, sprung buffers don't really make any difference. Certainly not operationally, not for me anyway. But you can see the lovely profile of this locomotive. They are really attractive looking locomotives. That's what drew me to one of these. I say, because there's less sort of separately fitted parts, less to fall off. So that's the advantage you will get with the Hornby Railroad range. And you can see from here now, looking at the cab, yeah, the cab is black, so there's no it's not painted in any way. But again, that's to bring the locomotive into a particular price range. Okay, I've always said this about detail in locomotives and separately fitted parts and things. I mean, like on the back of this tender here, the you can see either handrails or footrests, just like there. You can see one, and there's another one there. There, I think they're part of the moulding as well. They're not separately fitted parts. You've got a durable model. You're not afraid to take it out of the box. You know, and that's certainly an advantage. So I think you've got to look at everything in life. Something that you've got to look at things as plus points. I look at it and think that something is what it is. Okay, the Hornby Railroad range. The coaches here are from the Hornby Railroad range. Well, the front two are anyway on this train. The only difference between these and the coaches on, you can see just beyond you there on the Saints class, is that the handles are picked out in paint. But really, apart from that, they're identical. And I think the wording, the lettering's different as well. But really, they're the same coaches. They're exactly the same coaches as what I bought in the early 1990s. So the railroad range enabled me to get matching coaches to go with my existing ones. So these front two, this composite coach. Then we're going to bring this one round a little bit more, just a look. The restaurant car. That's the Hornby Railroad range. You can probably just see there is just about enough light, but yeah, you can see the handles are picked out. Look, on the door handles are picked out. There's slightly different wording. That's what you can buy. I bought these two from Amazon, of all places. Obviously, I've been buying things since the lockdown. I can't get to my local model shops or anything else. I'm locked down. But then this one here is one of my original coaches from the 1990s. Identical, really, apart from the fact that the door handles are not picked out on this in paint. They're sort of moulded as part of the detail. Now, these are durable coaches, okay, because everything's moulded on, or most of the details are moulded on. I've had one or two mishaps, I must admit, with my trains in the past. Spectacular mishaps, and these coaches are still fine. They're absolutely fine. So really, if you're looking for something, you see, there's two things you want to do with models. This is my opinion, and I'll be prattling on a little bit long tonight. Is that you either want to these nice sort of load of delicate parts all over a locomotive. That's okay if you want to put in an exhibition case, or you want to just sit and look at it all day. But really, locomotives you want to do this. Get them on the track. Get them going. That's what I want to do anyway. Other people who want to do, I respect other people who wish to buy models to just sit and look at and admire the details. That's fine. That's lovely. If that's what you enjoy doing, each our own. But for me, I want to be able to get these locomotives out. I want to play with them. I'm playing today. I'm playing trains. I'm enjoying it. I'm 63 and playing with a train set. Yee-haw. I love it. Okay, so there are people out there of all ages, boys and girls of all ages, children of all ages playing with their trains. But I want to be able to get these trains out and play with them. Now it's going around the track. It's fabulous. Look at that. Okay, so we're running into just under half an hour on this particular video tonight. And we've got our lovely Hornby Railroad County Class, County of Devon. And would I buy one of the tender driven models as well? If it was something that I wanted, a particular county I was after, I would. But so far I've only seen one county of Cornwall in the 440 configuration like this, and that's I don't think they do a railroad version of that. That was in the old tender driven version, but that wasn't boxed. I wasn't going to pay 50 odd quid for a locomotive. I think it was 40 odd quid for a locomotive that didn't even have a box. Okay, and if you do buy a train set, keep the box if you can, and keep them in as good condition as you can. That's for anyone thinking of starting a hobby. Now what I'm going to do now is I'm going to bid you farewell from Bedstead Junction, and once again thanks to Barry for spotting this one and sending me the link to eBay. Very much appreciated. What you'll find, like with a lot of things, I was involved in modern railways back in the up to the mid 1990s, and then work pressures and family things and everything else got in the way, plus a house move as well. Moving to a smaller house. You can see this is the bedroom where I've got this layout, and it's on the bed. Like I've said before, I've got to take this down tonight to go to bed. It was space constraints, all kinds of constraints. But I revitalised my my modern railways for the lockdown. I'm making some of these videos really for my own pleasure. I've been watching my own videos, believe it or not, and whatever you think of that, you think of it what you will. But I enjoy watching. Sometimes I like looking back at the videos I've made, and just see if I can see any mistakes I've made or anything I would have done differently. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to bid you farewell tonight from Bedstead Junction and our lovely Hornby County class. And if you like what you see, press like. If you want to subscribe and join my small band of subscribers, please do so. I could do with all the subscribers I can get. And thank you very much for watching. And until I make another video, I bid you farewell. And thank you very much. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.